This episode is brought to you by our wonderful sponsors, Galaxy Finance. Sponsors and personal friends that I trust enough to go to with questions about my own finances. That's not a sales pitch, that's fact. Any questions, any queries, they have the solutions from home loan lending to complete financial planning. With official interest rates at an all-time low, the lenders want your business. With Galaxy Finance, they'll do all the work for you and find the best possible deal. They'll do it all. Get in contact, ask for Leanne, and mention Unfiltered for a free chat. A free chat. No obligations, a free chat just by mentioning Unfiltered. galaxyfinance.com.au is where you can find them. The great ones, they're different. They really are. Not better, just different. Sure, there's a physical power, a mental strength, a complex but resolute constitution too. There's a whole lot more than just the measurables. That's something else, that intangible. It separates us from them. Welcome to the Legends series on Andy Raymond Unfiltered. Something different, very exciting on this edition of the Legends series, our first father-son combination. Joining us, the Hoffmans. Jay played 111 games for the Canberra Raiders between 1982 and 1987. Ryan, more recently, played 329 games for the Melbourne Storm and the Warriors between 2003 and 2017. Football families, Ryan, we've seen so many. Surely it's got to be more than just coincidence.
I think rugby league for me was one of my earliest memories. I sort of grew up with it. I was born into it, I suppose. I certainly wasn't pushed into it in any way, shape, or form. I just wanted to do, what Dad did. And some of my earliest memories are waiting out the back of Seaford Oval and running around on the field, kicking a 2-litre bottle of Coke. It's a really faint memory. I've got another faint memory of going to training with Matty Giddo, Ronnie Giddo's young bloke, and there was a old trainer at the Raiders that used to give me one of those little cans of soft drink that you get on aeroplanes. I used to get one of those after training whenever I went in with Dad. So, when those are your earliest memories, they certainly stick with you.
Jay, do the Suns see what it takes and the commitment that it takes? Is that why we're seeing, second, third, I think even Maxi King is a fourth generation footballer?
Yeah, I think kids like to do, especially boys like to do what their dads do if they're playing sport. And Ryan always had a ball as a child. We didn't push him in any direction whatsoever. It was just a choice he made when he got to that stage. We've been lucky that we've had his career to follow as well. It's been a big part of our life.
You're still a footy fan?
Yeah, I am. I can't help myself. I got to watch, and there's so much access to the games these days. It's a whole lot of fun. So I like to watch football. I like to talk about football.
You come to the right place here, mate. Yeah. Now, I want to get this one out of the way early, but am I sitting at a table with one Queenslander and one New South Welshman, or two New South Welshmen?
No. We sorted this out a while ago, I suppose. Yeah. When Ryan's playing for New South Wales, we support him, but every other time we're Queenslanders.
Jay, I ask because you shot to prominence in the late 1970s, representing Queensland firsts as hooker in the third interstate match of the year. What do you recall of Leichhardt Oval that night?
It was. I remember I'd never been to the ground before, so we were driving in, and you're going through these narrow little suburban streets, and you end up at this big opening, and I suppose it was a small ground. It's actually interesting when you look at the crowds that year. They started off at about 24,000. By the time they got to our game, the third game of the series, I think it was 4,500 people there. But it's, I was excited about it. I was playing football with a lot of guys I'd spent a lot of time with that year because I was part of the Queensland country.
Yep.
And we did a bit of a tour around. So, yeah, playing with guys like Greg Platts and Alan Smith and, yeah, those things would, I think, made us feel comfortable.
Colin Scott, Brad Backer, Choppy Close, Normie Carr, all guys in the team. And also a fella on the reserve bench that night, a young kid called Wally Lewis.
Yeah. Wally was, and he's a champion bloke, by the way. He really is. And, he sort of debuted in that game as well. So
Was he always going to be something special?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Because I played against him in club football. He played for Valleys. I was playing for Brothers. So you knew his talent and his skills that he had. And, yeah, he always seemed to be that player who was sort of one step ahead of everybody else.
What did a rep team's preparation look like back then? Was it 2 days of drinking beer, stay at the pub, one training run and play?
Yeah, I know. Maybe not like that in that game. We were being housed near the
You had work, didn't you?
footy field. Yeah, I had to work as well. But I remember Arthur Beetson was involved in the team, so that was handy as well because he had plenty of experience and it was good.
What did your rep preparations look like? Beer, but much different.
Yeah.
Gee, the game's changed.
Yeah, look, it has. I mean, it's a professionalism, I suppose, that came into it and sort of changed everything. And look, I think that when I got into Origin 2007, those real old school sort of bonding nights had sort of gone out the window. We sort of got a chance to get together and enjoy each other's company the first night, but then it was business as usual because Origin had become such a massive beast by then. And players knew what it was all about. I was lucky in around my Origin debut, I had blokes like Andrew Ryan and Craig Fitzgibbon. Yep. I think I roomed with Steve Simpson, and those guys were professional. They were established first graders. They knew what rep football was about, and they certainly showed me that you have a good time. And when it comes to footy time, that's when you switch on and do everything right because Origin is such a big thing.
The professionalism of the game's a business, to be honest. It doesn't make it better, it doesn't make it worse. It's just different when you compare the two eras. What's been the biggest change in rugby league, you reckon, Jay, since, I guess, we'll call 82?
Yeah, well, it's... I played in, as a junior, as a kid, under the 4-tackle rule. Then went on, it changed. It was unlimited tackle, then the 4-tackle rule. And
were you a kid as that was all happening?
Yeah, so I was sort of 8 years old playing unlimited football, tackle football. And then, they changed to 4 tackles, which was terrible. Yeah. And then to 6. And so those changes have always been part of the game.
You're listening to Andy Raymond Unfiltered, the Legends series. We have corporate and private sponsorship packages available. You set the terms. For further information on how you can become part of the team, go to the website andyraymondunfiltered.com.au and hit the sponsorship tab.
Yeah, I think the game, they're trying to keep the speed of the game up where, they don't allow for fatigue. Yep. And I just worry that that's changing the game somewhat.
Ryan, even you look back to the start of your career in 2003, the fabric of the game, the way the game is played, it has just changed dramatically.
Yeah, it's massively different. Look, we didn't have the drastic changes of saying going from unlimited tackles to 4 to 6, but going from 12 interchanges to 8 was certainly a very big change. And I don't necessarily think making the game faster has made the game better. Yeah, because it was like there's different eras of toughness. Yes, and I think at the start you did have the players that could play at a high speed and get replaced and then come back again. There's still a factor of attrition and that there, but this obsession with speeding the game up, I don't think has generated better football.
It was actually interesting. When I first came up to Brothers in Brisbane, I'm not sure whether it was the first year or the second year. I think it was the first year I was up there, which would have been 1980. We had a pre-season where they had unlimited tackle.
Really?
Yeah, we played the pre-season in the Brisbane comp with unlimited tackles.
What was the reasoning behind that?
Oh, I think there'd been a lot of pressure about people sort of trying to work out 4 tackles, 6 tackles, and people saying it was better in the old days.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't even close to being better. I remember that was the time Arthur Beetson had come back up to play for Redcliffe.
Yep.
And, having him lumbering at you time after time wasn't much fun, I can tell you.
The Canberra Raiders of 1982, first year in what was then known as the New South Wales Rugby League. They joined the competition with the Illawarra Steelers. Take us back to Seaford Oval, mate. What was footy like back then? What were the Raiders like back then?
It was a really good time and a most enjoyable time out of football that I had. There was a whole lot of people had assembled in Canberra in January for pre-season training. Guys had driven down from North Queensland to trial, and it was the atmosphere was good. It was all about football. Everybody was excited about it. I think Canberra was excited about it, and some of us a bit apprehensive about what was going to happen and who we're going to get. But we ended up. I think that year we won 4 games. So, but it was a really tight knit. Very quickly, because so many people had come in from far and wide, mainly from Queensland, and that was the sort of Canberra and Queensland have always had that affinity, it was good. We were all in the same boat, whether you played first grade or you played park football, it didn't matter.
Something you're proud of now as you look back, that you're one of the original crew? Yeah,
I take great pride in the way that club's developed and persevered over the years. Yeah. I think they had pretty strong roots at the start. It was always Queanbeyan was a strong rugby league area. They had a magnificent leagues club, and we spent a bit of time in there too. And
after the wins,
it was a bit dry. Yeah. But it was a great place to be around. Yeah.
Something you're proud of, Dad?
Yeah. Look, I love whenever we go to play the Raiders, and they've got all the list of all the players that play for Canberra, and I see Dad's number 6. He's like the Raiders have had over 200 players play the game, and to have Dad as number 6, and I was a Raiders supporter all through my whole life. Dad took me to the '89 grand final. I was 5 years old. I got to be there for the '89 grand final. Like it was unbelievable. I fell asleep, didn't I?
And then did.
I fell asleep, and then Chicka scored, and I ended up 3 rows down. But so there was that. I went to the '94 grand final, so I got to see that one. But I've always had a love for the. I didn't find myself singing the Raiders song once the Raiders run out whenever we play in Canberra. But certainly when I walk in the stadium, I always love going past and seeing all the names of all the Raiders players and seeing Dad's name up there.
Quick quiz, Jay. We'll see how the memory is. Canberra's first game was against?
First game was against South Sydney at night at Redfern.
Who scored Canberra's first points?
You got me.
Peter McGrath it was with a goal.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first try scorer?
No.
Wasn't you, was it?
No, it wasn't. Certainly wasn't me. Certainly wasn't. I didn't score many tries, I do.
It was Jerry De La Cruz, the little halfback.
Yeah, he was a champion little bloke.
Absolutely he was.
Yeah.
I would imagine you would remember the first win.
Yeah, we do. It was against Illawarra. No, it was against Newtown. Yeah. We won 12-11. Kicked the goal at the end just to get us over the line. And, the whole place went off. It was, it was unbelievable. You couldn't get into the Leagues Club. People were just falling out the doors. It was
One of my early memories of rugby league, and keep in mind we only got to see one game a weekend on TV back then, but was David Grant, Big Nana, from the back fence, just not caring about his body or anyone else's. What a special talent.
Yeah, he was unbelievable, Nana. And, you know, I think Don made a call and made him captain.
Mm.
And, yeah, that... Because I don't think Nana had ever been captain of anything.
Yeah.
And when he was announced to be the captain, he sort of lifted a step in his football. He's a great footballer.
Mm.
Unfortunately, died too young.
Yeah.
But a champion bloke. And as you say, he used to get off the back fence and run hard.
And it was a big unit too, wasn't it?
He was huge.
This episode is brought to you by our wonderful sponsors, Galaxy Finance. Sponsors and personal friends that I trust enough to go to with questions about my own finances. That's not a sales pitch, that's fact. Any questions, any queries, they have the solutions from home loan lending to complete financial planning. With official interest rates at an all-time low, the lenders want your business. With Galaxy Finance, they'll do all the work for you and find the best possible deal. They'll do it all. Get in contact, ask for Leanne, and mention Unfiltered for a free chat. A free chat. No obligations, a free chat just by mentioning Unfiltered. galaxyfinance.com.au is where you can find them.
The funny was my grandma or Dad's mum always tells the story. David Grant was one of her favourites because he never left a scrum without Dad. So he never left where the scrum was until he made sure Dad was up. And so he was always a favourite in the Hoffman household, especially with Grandma.
Yeah, no, he was. He was a champion. Yeah.
So Nana wouldn't leave a scrum until he knew his hooker was okay. Now, anyone under 40 years of age listening to this is going to be thinking, what the hell are these blokes talking about?
Yeah.
Well, a hooker, it was very, very different back in the 80s, wasn't it?
It certainly was.
Can you zoom in on his ears? That'll give you the best indication what a hooker was like in the 80s.
I did actually see that.
Yeah. You used to have to get them aspirated on Mondays.
The position... It doesn't even resemble what it was now, does it?
No, it doesn't. And look, I think the game's better for it because there was always arguments and whether it was in straight or it wasn't in straight, everybody cheated.
Yep.
No hooker went in with both arms over the props. Everybody was working out how to out-cheat the other people. So I think. From the game's development point of view, it was fun, but being on the bottom of the scrum without having a front rower to pull you out could get a bit dangerous sometimes because people weren't that careful about where they put their feet and so forth. So
it was the worst hooker to play against.
I don't know. I've got bad memories of George Proponis. They used to get a bit grubby at the Canterbury.
Oh, Dr. George.
Dr. George, yeah. He was always a bit rough. There was a couple of other playing Max Krilich. He was a bit tough, and Manly were always tough.
Yeah.
St George, Rod Reddy, from the second row, he'd come through, he'd grab you by your jersey, you wouldn't, all those things. And that's why it was good when they got rid of scrums, to be honest.
What was your go-to? Was it the headbutt? Was it the uppercut? Was it grab the jersey, loose arm?
It was to close the curtains with the two front rows, wasn't it? Just to set back
exactly
Jack
right.
Hardy and Nana, where you go.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Did you ever get in the stink?
A bit of pushing and shoving and stuff like that, but I was always behind big blokes, Nana was good.
Fight.
Well, Nana was good like that. Like, he always pulled you out. Yeah, Jack Hardy was good, Johnny McLeod. But that, in those days, everybody knew, the bloke who had both his arms hanging up was exposed.
He was the target.
Yeah. That Rod Reddy used to be from St George. Wow. just you'd never have time. You'd have a hand in your face, in your eyes, in your mouth, pulling your cheek. Yeah. Anyway, that's the way it was played in those days.
I interviewed Ray Price recently, and he said exactly the same thing about Rocket Ready. There was a semi-final at the SCG, Parramatta St George, so I'm assuming very early 80s. He said, I think we both still have nightmares about it. Every scrum, every tackle, there was something.
Yeah.
Whether it was just a clip over the ear, an elbow, a forearm. He said it's amazing what you can get away with, or what you could.
I think I told you a story about the Terry Regan story that Dad used to tell me. You had a great story about Terry Regan when he...
Yeah, we were... I forget who we were playing, but anyway, Terry's gone into a tackle sort of just over halfway, and these players come out absolutely screaming out of the tackle. And, the ref sort of stopped the game, and he's lifted his jersey, and there's this bite mark on his... And I turned around and, something I'd never observed or was sort of never taken to. And I said to Riggs, did you bite him? He said, bloody oath I did. I exchanged bloody for another word, but and bloody oath I did. And I'll do it again if I have to. And I think, Jesus Christ. If my mum knew the people I was playing football with, she used to always say, tackle that gentleman. So there wasn't many in rugby league, I don't think, in those days.
The early years at Canberra, a bit of a struggle at times, but the club started to recruit some big names. They were young blokes with bright futures. Who stood out?
Yeah, it was interesting. I was doing a thing today. I was telling Ryan that there were, Canberra started making those recruitment decisions in 1986.
Yeah.
Where, that's the year they got Belcher, Coyne, Ferguson, Meninga, Steve Walters.
Yeah.
Just fabulous players, every one of them. So... that was the turning point, I think. That, especially Mal, because he was such a respected footballer from Queensland.
He'd already been on the 82 Kangaroo team.
Yeah.
So he was established.
Yeah, and he was known as as a really good footballer. So, I think that gave people momentum to sort of say something's happening here. And then, in 87... they got Peter Jackson, Brent Todd, who was a Kiwi front rower, Kevin Walters, Laurie Daly, and Glenn Lazarus. So that in a couple of years they put together 10 players who went on to play 1,300 odd games for them. So
not too dissimilar to what would happen to you some 20 odd years later, an elite group of youngsters coming through where it just clicked. Amazing times.
I think you're right. They were players who similar to Melbourne. They're isolated down in Canberra. They're not in the hubbub of Sydney in the way it was. That's obviously before the Broncos and whatever started. So, I think that was the turning point for the Raiders, was that recruitment of Gary Belcher and certainly Mal Meninga. And Steve Walters.
Well, you went to go watch Laurie, so you helped recruit Laurie too, didn't you?
Laurie was he was one out of the box.
Yeah.
They come along. He was always going to be a champion. He
was
good
playing
kid.
first grade at junior at some silly age and avoiding the high shots and making fools of them.
Yeah. They couldn't catch him.
We hope you're enjoying this edition of Andy Raymond Unfiltered. The Legends series drops at the start of your working week. It's in-depth, personal, and highlights the game's finest from yesteryear. The weekly Wodge drops in time for your weekend. It's full on and the hottest podcast on the market. Why listen to opinions when you can listen to interviews with the stars? And on every episode, you can hear up to a dozen different players and coaches, both past and present, giving their thoughts on the great game. It's fast-paced, full of footy and laughs too. It's a must-listen. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you are listening. That way, you won't miss a thing. Every episode will drop immediately. Before you go, we'd love a 5-star rating and review. It's not for ego, it's for business, as we look to expand the Unfiltered brand and bring you more. Make sure you come back soon, legends. This episode is brought to you by our wonderful sponsors at Griffin Air Conditioning. Griffin Air Conditioning offers the highest quality of air conditioning sales and service across the Sydney metropolitan area, providing installation and maintenance to commercial, domestic and industrial customers. Working with this team, you'll be guaranteed the latest services, technology and developments in the industry, as well as dealing with some legendary blokes. Visit griffinair.com.au and tell them we sent you for a cool deal. That's griffinair.com.au. Welcome back to Andy Raymond Unfiltered, the Legends series, with the Hoffmans, Ryan and Jay. The story continues. Ryan, being the son of a first-grade footballer, an advantage or disadvantage as you would come through the grades, or was it both?
Oh, I never saw it as a disadvantage. Yeah. I took great pride in it, to be quite honest. There were many times that it was great to hear him at the start of my career, Ray Warren, talking about how he used to commentate Dad, and now he's commentating me. I remember I was in a All-Stars game against the Indigenous All-Stars, and Wayne Bennett was the coach, and Wayne coached Dad first of all at Brisbane Brothers in the early 80s, and then in 87. And I think he called me Jay the whole time. I don't think he called me Ryan once. I think he called me Jay the whole week. Smithy pulled him up on it once, and I think he just said, I'm just going to run with this. So, no, look, as I said, I always took great pride, and I took great pride in Dad's career and what he did. And not so much what I take great pride in what he did, but also how respected he was. And Bellak talks about it when he talks about Dad and other sort of players. They just he was a tough bastard, because what he got put through those early days at the Raiders, get on the back of hidings. But they always said Dad sort of stood up, and to get clubbing and like you're at the club 5-6 years, to get clubbing twice. Yeah. I think that says a lot, and it was more pride than anything. I don't think it was a disadvantage or an advantage.
Gee, it's a long association, the Bellamy and the Hoffman families, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And Craig is a wonderful football coach, but he's a great person.
Better person, isn't he?
Yeah, we always hit it off right from the get-go, and he was always a hard worker. I remember saying to Ryan when he signed for Melbourne, and then Craig actually signed after him, and I said, wow, you're going to find out what it's all about. You'll be fit at least.
That's what he said, is because I signed under Mark Murray, and then a couple of weeks after I signed, he got sacked, and they signed Bellak. Wow. I said, oh, yeah, remember Craig and all that sort of stuff, and he goes, yeah, you're going to work hard, Tim, I tell you, you're going to learn how to train hard.
Yeah. He had that work ethic even back in the 80s.
100%. He was always doing the extras, really was. He was a refrigeration mechanic at the club, but he'd be in the gym all the time, and he was just a dedicated footballer.
Was he as grumpy then as he is now?
Yeah, he used to have the moments where he'd take the mouth out and throw it down on the ground.
Let's just say footage of a game. He got replaced. Like, they're giving the team, I think, give Easter hiding one day, and he got replaced, and he's throwing his mouth out as he comes off the field.
Yeah.
We speak about Melbourne. How'd you end up there? You're a Tigers junior. You went to the famed
Western Suburbs junior.
Western Suburbs, sorry. Magpies,
yeah. Mighty Magpies. Look, I was just a Western Suburbs junior. I always sort of played my rugby league there, and I was in the West Tigers sort of system there for a while. Yeah. I played reserve grade my last year at school for West, and my contract was up, and I wanted to. The Tigers at the time, they just lost Terry Lamb as a coach, and they hadn't had a coach for the next year. And I just felt like I wanted to change. I wanted something different, and I had the best family life in the world, but I wanted to leave home. Like I was 18 years old, ready to I was finishing school, and I don't know what it was, but I just felt like leaving home might be good. Yeah. But as I say, it wasn't due to home life. Home life was fantastic, and I had a couple of offers my last year. In the end, it came down to Melbourne and the Roosters.
Really?
Yeah, and it came down to them. And that was when I had to make a decision. I had to make a decision what it was all about for me. And the Roosters' offer was better, but Melbourne could offer me the top squad. So I was tossing up, and in the end, I took a bit of less cash to get into the top squad in Melbourne, and I got to leave home. Moved out of home straight out of school. I was 18 years old, and I didn't know anyone at Melbourne. Didn't know any of the players. I sort of knew Craig from running into him in games and that every now and then. But it was just a decision I wanted to make. I remember Dad and I went down to Melbourne to have a look around, just see what it was about. And we there certainly wasn't anything flash. We went to Olympic Park, didn't we?
Yeah,
and it was old and run down. Even their offices and gym, it wasn't all that great. But the people that sort of showed us around was Greg Brentnell, Chris Johns, John Rebo, and we even went and spoke to Peter Blunden, who was the boss of the Herald Sun. And I remember leaving it, and we were on the plane on the way back, and it just I knew that this was the place sort of for me. Yeah. And it just sort of felt right. And as I say, being a rugby league tragic, I would have loved to as a kid been playing for the Raiders, but I know that there wasn't any interest in me when I was a kid, which was fine. A bit of a traditionalist, would have seen myself playing for a Sydney club, but in the end, everything about Melbourne felt right. And moving down to Melbourne, I was living with Billy and Cam. We were living down, being professional footballers, playing football for a living. It was the best life in the world.
An amazing time to be at the Storm. There were some senior players with a great deal of international respect in the club. But there was a lot of young kids that were hungry, super talented, with their heads on.
Yeah. And look, it was... I was 18. Billy was only supposed to come down until Christmas. He was only contracted till Christmas, and then he was heading back. Same with Dallas Johnson. But they identified Bellac like Billy because he competed in everything. Loved Dallas because Dallas was tough as on boot. So he said, all right, we'll give you guys after Christmas as well. Turf blokes like Cooper Cronk back up to Brisbane.
That's right.
He didn't make it, and so we were sort of coming through, and it was just a great time to be, because what the benefit was, Craig shook everything up. He changed the way Melbourne Storm had always done pre-season. It was a tough, long slog. What Ballack wanted to do was weed out the mentally weak guys.
Yep.
Where we were beneficial is we had senior players, and Matty Geyer, Steve Kearney, Rodney Howe, Robbie Ross, Robbie Kearns. They bought into what Craig was about. Yep. And that was the difference. So for us as young kids, 18, 19, we thought this was normal. We thought every team does it. It's what it takes to be a first grader. It's our first grade team's chain. So we just bought into it, and we were led by some really strong, great leaders who bought into what the coach was about. And that just created harmony amongst the team. And, we loved it. We were getting our ass handed to us day in, day out. But we thought, oh, well, hang on, everyone's doing this, aren't they? And for a young player coming into first grade, into understanding what being a first grader is all about and what hard work and what work ethic was all about, we lucked into it, to be quite honest. And, we had a good group of guys who were talented, but you said it before, they were hungry. We wanted to be successful. We wanted to be the best. And, we got that much confidence out of where we're training because we think we're fitter and stronger than what we've ever been. And, but success in Melbourne didn't come straight away. I mean, it took us 3 years. Bellac's first 3 years, we couldn't get past the second round of the semis.
Yeah.
And then, after that, we managed to make 4 grand finals in a row. But it was a slow burn for us. But, we knew what it took.
You're listening to Andy Raymond Unfiltered, the Legends series. We have corporate and private sponsorship packages available. You set the terms. For further information on how you can become part of the team, go to the website andyraymondunfiltered.com.au and hit the sponsorship tab.
I always said to people, I would have backed myself to be an NRL player, whichever club I went to.
Yep.
But playing under Craig helped me to become the first grader I wanted to become.
Yep.
Like
And there's a difference.
Yeah, there's a massive difference. I didn't want to just be a first grader. I wanted to achieve everything rugby league, and certainly playing under Craig helped me with that. But as I say, I would have backed myself to be a first grader anywhere. But I had a vision in my head of the first grade I wanted to be, and under Craig's tutelage and playing with the fantastic players I got to play with certainly helped that.
3 stints at the Storm, do they stand out for different reasons?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, that first stint, going from an 18-year-old kid, just left school, didn't really know anything, just playing footy and living the life, thinking this is the best job in the world. And then having that success, and then going from the best times of rugby league that you'll ever sort of have, playing in 4 straight grand finals, to having something happen to you that's probably the worst thing that could ever happen to a rugby league team. And going away, like, that was a great experience. Going away to England and then coming back for the second stint, for me it was unfinished. I hate the term, but it was sort of unfinished business.
Absolutely,
I wanted to get back into rep footy.
Yep.
I felt I wasn't done in rep footy. We wanted to win premierships again. And then to come back there at the end, I mean, to be able to finish as a Melbourne Storm player was certainly something. And I was a bit of a crossroads after the Warriors didn't want to resign me. I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen. I thought at some stage I was going to the UK to finish my career over there in France, but in the end it happened, and I got to finish as a Melbourne Storm player where it all started.
Premierships, representative success for Ryan. Having played Jay and seeing the boys succeed like he did, I would imagine that in some ways probably shines brighter than your own career when you look at how proud you are of your offspring.
Yeah, he usurped my career, hands down. And we, as a family, we're proud about the way that he approached it. He was fair dinkum about his football. It was very important to him. The fact that, as Ryan said, we signed with a different coach, and then, but and I put that down to John Rebo. He sold Melbourne really well, and we had a conversation when we were down there for that day, and he gave me a lot of confidence that Melbourne was going to be wasn't just going to be there making up the numbers, and then once Ryan joined the club, the way the senior players and the leadership they showed was really important, especially for parents. Sending your kid away, 18 years old, and all the way to Melbourne. But that's what we decided, didn't we? Well, you decided, and then
it was. I kept on asking what you thought I should do, and I said, I'm not going to tell you. It's your decision.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I'll give you to you and Jenny wonderful credit, and I'm not pissing in your pocket, but I recall him playing reserve grade, and I recall debut year. One of very few in the modern era that had a good head on his shoulders, even as a young bloke. He didn't walk around thinking he was the answer to everything. He was a good young man from a very young age.
Yeah, well, thank you. But that's the way we treat each other, and that's what stood out with Melbourne, that they could set themselves apart there, and it was a bit like Canberra. It was. Canberra was a long way to go, and not many people wanted to go there because it's freezing cold in winter. Not too dissimilar to Melbourne. But we were very proud, and I never thought he'd be any different, to be honest. It was never a worry that he wouldn't do the right thing. It was whether he was in an atmosphere where that was, all the good things were put prominently out there.
But that's all come down to leadership too. The senior players at the club kept their, we had guys who end up becoming household names, like especially look at Billy and Cam. But there was no ego at all about it. There was no ego at all, and that shows a lot about the environment they were in. They didn't foster an ego-driven environment. It was always team-based.
Not always easy times, and Ryan touched on earlier the salary cap saga. How difficult as a parent for you and Jenny, watching your son get dragged through something that, quite frankly, he absolutely had nothing to do with? He was just part of an organisation.
I remember the conversation I had with Ryan when he rang to tell me what had happened. And it was disbelief, to be honest, that they can't take away the premierships. You know, they can't do that to you. And we got caught up in the emotion of it all, because it was a pretty emotional time. And
Yes.
I remember going down. You know, we booked a flight to go down and watch the boys play the Warriors in Melbourne straight after it came out. And I felt sorry for the Warriors that night, because there was no way.
It was a pounding, yeah.
Yeah, and I just felt that was the club showed everybody that, you know, they're not going to sit back and whinge. They're going to, you know, take it on the chin and go forward.
Griffin Air Conditioning offers the highest quality of air conditioning sales and service across the Sydney metropolitan area, providing installation and maintenance to commercial, domestic and industrial customers. Working with this team, you'll be guaranteed the latest services, technology and developments in the industry. Visit griffinair.com.au and tell them we sent you for a cool deal.
I remember talking to Wally Lewis there that night, you know, and Wally's a champion bloke. He always looks out for people that he's played football with, and he wants to bend your ear and whatever. But I remember having a conversation with him, and he said that, you know, Canberra wouldn't, the Raiders wouldn't let that, the Storm wouldn't let that stop.
Yeah.
And but yeah, you hurt for your kids, of course, and we were all pretty close, all the families, you know, because obviously young parents, a lot from Queensland.
Yeah.
And we all got on pretty well, and we were all a bit devastated. But the way they stood up was inspiring.
It was admirable. Do you look back on those tough times, Ryan, or do you wipe it from the memory bank?
You don't wipe it from the memory bank. It happened. There's no point hiding from it. You know, it happened, but you take a lot of solace in the fact that you came out of it in the end. I mean, you know, what the values of the club and the values you got brought up with really came to the fore, and you know that's what helped you get through it. That's what helped you, not only in a football sense, but also in a life sense as well. Yeah.
Builds a level of resilience, I guess.
Well, yeah, you have to be. You had to have resilience. And, you know, we went through some very tough times. We had some very tough road trips. And footy fans are footy fans. They certainly let you know how you feel. And in the end, we had to cop it. A lot of it was, you know, we knew it was coming. And in the end, there was no point sort of dwelling on it. But we knew that really what the club was about. Yeah. This club was built on hard work and high standards, not anything else.
300 games. It's now a milestone that we celebrate, and rightfully so. For both of you, does that afternoon on the Gold Coast stand out?
Yeah, it's a weird sort of game.
Yeah, no, it certainly does. Yeah. It certainly did for Jenny and myself and the family. That we're very proud of the fact that not only that he played 300 first grade games, it's just the way he conducted himself. Yeah. You know, Ryan's, football's been what it's all been about. It hasn't been about him, having a good time. And I think one of the things I kept reiterating, footballers today don't own the game.
Yep.
Yeah, there's little kids like Ryan was, who aspire to play it.
They're just the custodians of the game at the moment.
And you've got to leave it in a better place than how you found it. So, and I was certainly very proud of the fact that Ryan had done nothing to take away from that.
Does it hold a special place in your heart that day?
Yeah, it was. Everything sort of come together that day. I got to get a try, and the boys come away with a great win. We were having a bit of a real up and down season, but I mean the effort what the boys put in, and I remember my last game against the Warriors. in New Zealand, the boys, Simon Mannering presented me something with the team that all the Warriors did that year for fellas that were retiring. And I remember saying in the speech, I mean, that will always be etched in my memory.
Yep.
Like I was at the Warriors for 3 years, and the effort that those boys put in, whether they put in for me or not, I don't know, but to make sure that was a special night for me and an afternoon for me is something that I'll never forget. Like, the boys played really well, and you could see that effort was there, and that just summed up, the people at the Warriors that I played with. They were fantastic people, and to understand something that was really important to me, to make it important for themselves, was great too. And they even scored a try late at the end, so I could have a kick at goal. I now have a career record of 1 from 3. So.
No goals on your resume, I noticed, Jay.
Actually, there you go.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They're playing at Newtown Park, playing reserve grade.
Was your last game,
It was the last game. I think it might have been the last game I played. It was a bit different from Ryan's last game, I must admit. And down at on the ovals around Henson Park there, and kicked my one and only goal.
Are we talking sideline, into a gale?
All those things.
Yes.
It was unbelievable. I think people laughed so hard. Because I remember Henson Park, it was the only place that the dressing sheds were unique.
Yes.
Where you had to walk up the stairs to go and have a shower. And after playing a game of football, it was never good. But I celebrated hard that day. I kicked the goal.
Having played at Henson, I know how hard it was too in the middle of the field, so you definitely needed a shower.
That's right.
Oh, that was brutal.
They were pretty rough, those fields.
Weren't they?
Yeah.
Boys, the game in 2021, do we like what we're seeing? Are we going in the right
as a Melbourne
direction?
Storm man, I'm loving what I'm saying.
Yeah, you should.
No, look, I think there's been a lot of snap decisions made that I don't think has been for the benefit of the game. I understand the reasoning behind a couple of decisions. Like, you talk about speeding the game up, I don't think it's equated to better football. That's my personal opinion. Yep. The crackdown with the head highs, I think you need to protect players from themselves, and concussion is a real concern within the game and in society. And as someone who got concussed a lot in my career, I certainly understand all that. But whether or not the crackdown has equated to making the game safer, I'm not sure. I think if you look at the statistics, I think most players who have stayed off the field from concussions has been either making tackles or with head clashes.
Yeah.
I think players have gone into the protocols for like a HIA from a head-high tackle, but a lot of them come back on. So they made the game faster. The first thing that goes when you're fatigued is technique.
Yes.
So tackle technique goes out the window, and we're seeing a lot of concussions from poor tackle technique. So, look, I think some more research and some more getting data on where these things were coming from as to, make a decision on some of these rule changes. I understand that we want to make this game as safe as possible because we want kids playing. My son's has played rugby league, and I want it safer when he plays and all that sort of thing. But it's not making snap decisions without looking at it for an appropriate amount of time. It's my feel.
Very well worded. What about you, Jay?
Yeah, I think it's really necessary that they stop people getting hit in the head.
Yep.
So, your game's not going to survive if people go around coming off with concussions. So they've got to get rid of it. I think they need to adapt some of the training that happens. I don't know whether the teams have had enough time to start implementing different tackle techniques to ensure that doesn't happen. So hopefully the game learns from it, and teams are coached in a way, and kids are brought up through the system.
Yeah, but you want to encourage blokes to tackle around the legs. That's obviously the safest place to do it. But there's no reward in today's game for making a leg tackle.
Exactly.
There's no reward because they want the game sped up. They want you off the leg straight away. Yep. So why would you coach your players to tackle?
Do a little comparison, Jay. As a young man, we'll talk late 1970s. Where were you taught to tackle? Hips sliding down to legs?
I was really lucky as a kid coming up. So this is, I don't know, I would have been 12, 13.
Yep.
There was a guy in Casino where I was brought up called Eddie Walker. He was an Aboriginal guy and just had an affinity for football.
Yep.
And he taught us how to do all the right things.
Okay.
You know, so how to tackle. And I was always taught to tackle low.
Yep.
I think people do get hurt tackling low, but I don't think they're getting the injuries that happen in, with a swinging arm or
That's right. Yeah.
elbow or whatever.
Yeah.
So, I think the modern game has sort of put legs tackles out of it because you're trying to control the ball. You don't want people passing. So what they need to do is start, training new different techniques about how to tackle people with the ball, whether it be between the knees and the shoulders, which is a sort of AFL sort of way. Yep. Maybe that's it. I don't know.
Okay, that's late 70s we're talking there. Ryan, as you as an 18-year-old, where was your tackle target that you were taught?
I was like that. I was taught to tackle around the legs.
Yep.
From when I started playing rugby league, that was on tackling around the legs.
When did it change?
Well, when you start playing sort of first grade and that sort of stuff, you got to wrap the ball up, and you find that in tackles these days, you don't get your time in the tackle on the ground because they want you off. You get your time in the tackle on the transition from the top to the ground.
Yes,
and that's where the game's changed a bit because they don't want you lying on the blokes. So you take your time in taking the bloke on the ground. That's where you get time in the tackle. But it's as I say, you don't get the reward for a great legs tackle anymore. Like the old, what they call it, Johnny Raper tackle around the bootlaces. You don't get the reward.
Well, that gets the person to the ground quickly, but it gets them to the ground quickly on their chest, and they've got to get up. And as you're saying, everybody's trying to speed things up so much these days. So and it takes time. I think the monumental thing changes that they've made this year about quick play the ball, people get off. There's got to be a balance somewhere.
I agree.
And players need to train it.
I get the feeling the three of us could sit here quite comfortably until.
We'll solve the problems of the world.
Anyway. Absolutely.
Exactly. We'll get peace in the Middle East. We'll get everything going.
It's been an absolute pleasure sitting down with the pair of you, enjoying a coldie with the pair of you, and talking footy. The Hoffmans, Jay and Ryan, you guys are legends. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
We hope you're enjoying this edition of Andy Raymond Unfiltered. The Legends series drops at the start of your working week. It's in-depth, personal, and highlights some of the game's finest from yesteryear. The weekly Wodge drops in time for your weekend. It's full on and the hottest podcast on the market. Why listen to opinions when you can listen to interviews with the stars? And on every episode, you can hear up to a dozen different players and coaches, both past and present, giving their thoughts on the great game. It's fast-paced, full of footy and laughs. It's a must-listen. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you are listening. That way, you won't miss a thing. Every episode will drop immediately. Before you go, we'd love a 5-star rating and review. It's not for ego, it's for business, as we look to expand the Unfiltered brand and bring you more. Make sure you come back soon, legends.